me. When we're talking about the power of personality, my dad taught me this lesson about what it means to be childish, the difference between childish and childlike. He said to be childish is to be silly and immature. When you're starting out a business, you don't want to be silly and immature because you're going to run your business down to the ground really quickly. But childlike, those characteristics include things like, fearlessness, naivety. I'm just naive, forgiving, trusting. There's so many good characteristics and traits in a childlike personality. And my dad said, don't lose that in business. Don't be silly and immature, but do be childlike because you've always been that. In other words, go back to the class clown traits and incorporate that into your business.
Hello, and welcome to Say Hi to the Future, a podcast aimed at highlighting the human side of human ingenuity, clever, inventive, and original thinking. My name is Ken Tencer, curator of Say Hi to the Future and CEO of Spyder Works, a leading business consultancy for mid-market organizations and entrepreneurs globally. With me today is Daniel Lewis, author, entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and proud founder of the award-winning tea company, Tea by Daniel. His people-focused outlook on entrepreneurship and his experiential business tactics have garnered him and his company nationwide recognition and many awards and honors, such as a 2016 Business Excellence Award and a 2017 Top 40 Under 40 Entrepreneurs. Daniel's success with his retail tea brand have even landed him an opportunity to serve His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, during his 2017 Royal Tour in Canada. With his official public speaking platform, Daniel Speaks, he touches on his non-traditional approaches to retail, marketing, customer service, sales, and the world of entrepreneurship with audiences all across Canada and abroad. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Daniel, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Ken. I'm glad to be here.
It's funny. I was reading your background, your bio. There's just so much to you. But I want to jump to the one thing that I have never read in a bio before. It said you serve tea, and I think it's your tea brand, to His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, during his 27 Royal Tour in Canada. I mean, what does Buckingham Palace just call you one day and say, Tea by Daniel is the biggest thing in Britain? That's amazing.
I wish it was that easy. I just have them on my cell phone, just call them up. I wish. But yeah, Ken, you're right. It's a milestone, one of the biggest milestones that's ever happened in my life, mine and my wife's, and something that I'm still trying to believe today. It's just amazing how it all came around, and it really stemmed back from 3 years prior to that event happening in 2017. I had just volunteered my time in the Rexdale community to talk to the youth about business and about tapping into community resources. And I just, I love to volunteer. I thought it was just that, but I didn't know that who I had volunteered for, who was putting on the event, was the Prince's Charities of Canada. Wow. And the entire executive team was there. We got to meet each other after, my talk and the panel discussion, became really well acquainted. I got to learn about their mission. They got to learn about me. And for the next 3 years, I volunteered on several occasions for many of the events. And then 2017 rolled around. The Prince of Wales and the Duchess Camilla were on their way to Canada to celebrate the 150th celebration. And the Prince requested that when he gets to the Army base in Trenton, he wants 15 minutes set aside for tea. His people were like, we know a guy and his wife who has been volunteering for your charity for the last 3 years, just so happens to have tea. And we got the invite from the RCMP.
That's phenomenal. But I mean, we talk about phenomenal things in our lives, but as you said, you showed up for the charity, you showed up for the kids. And I think that good comes out of good.
Absolutely. I agree. It's when you do things genuinely for a good motive and with the focus of impacting someone else, amazing things can happen. And I've seen that often throughout our business journey.
Well, I know that this podcast does not rival the Prince of Wales, but I'll tell you,
it's just as good.
No, but here's the funny thing. It's again about a testament to you and your wife, Sonia, and you've heard her voice in the background, who's producing the segment, went to high school across the street from T by Daniel and was raving about you and your wife and how you were such a strong part of the community there. And frankly, that's how, again, we found you today.
Amazing. And again, it just goes, I know when I'd have my staff, what I like to call retail magicians, when we'd have our meetings, I would sit them down and we would talk about how to highlight every single individual that walks through our front doors. I don't care if they're a young child, mother, father, it doesn't matter who they are. The show is about them. Treat them with just the most love, respect, and give them a good time. And, you know, I don't maybe recall Sonia specifically coming in there, but she must have been one of those people who came through and got that experience, and then she didn't hesitate to tell somebody else about it. So
absolutely. So tell me a little bit about Tea by Daniel. How do you get into the tea business?
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting roller coaster of a story. So I mean, I never set out when I was younger and said, you know, I'm going to start a tea business or anything like that. Sorry there. But it all started. So I was in the music industry. Songwriter, so registered Canadian songwriter, a performing artist, really trying to get onto the Billboard charts and you know, find my dream in music. And I did that for many, many years. I was in the hip hop industry, pop, and I tried a little bit of rock. But in the hip hop industry specifically, I made a lot of songs that didn't necessarily represent who I was, but because of the hip hop culture, said some things in some songs that didn't resonate with the right people, and made a few bad associations in that industry. And in 2009, those lyrics in some of the songs that I had came back to haunt me, in that I went through a bit of a tragic incident where I was a victim of a nearly fatal stabbing on account of lyrics in one of my songs. And I think that was the turnaround point for me in my life. And, you know, to skip through the gory details of all of that, when I was in the hospital, I was thinking of ways that, you know, how could I impact people's life in a positive way? Because right now I'm seeing all these people impacting me, doctors, nurses, the pilots, you know, paramedics, just everybody who's stepping in and saving my life and impacting in such a huge way. And I asked myself, you know, like, Dan, like, you're 21 years old. What impact do you have? And I hated the answer at that time in my life. So I promised myself, the moment I get out of here, I'm going to find something, some way of impacting people's life in a positive way. And a year and a half out, that tool became tea. I stopped drinking alcohol and changed my entire life, really, and body and diet. Picked up on tea around the time David's Tea had started. It was like a new habit of mine. And tea just became that avenue and that driving force of this change that I wanted to bring about in my community, in my life, and in the world, really.
But that's amazing. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. The first I'll say is, like, I have 3 kids in their 20s, and it's amazing. I mean, what you went through is obviously extreme in terms of what can happen or go wrong or be so, you know, challenging about youth. But it's what I've always said to them and others, you know, when I'm speaking as well, is man, you know, the decisions you make, they live and they last. And the good thing that I see in you is, you know, you had that second chance, you had that opportunity, and what you've done is amazing. And I'm looking at the URL, and it says the teacup of life for Tea by Daniel. Is that sort of a part of a mantra?
Kind of. I think it's kind of a narrative that's just kind of went along with my story and what I like to use tea to accomplish. So yeah, you could call it a mantra.
Okay. And you also talk a little bit about other businesses you've started. I think there's 10 or 12 you've been a part of. What type of businesses did you get into, and what motivated you there?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, a lot of my life and my story and my business ventures kind of stemmed from it's like a snowballing effect. I did this, then this happened, and then this happened. So as I was building Tea by Daniel with my wife, we again, I took a different course in the earlier part of my life where, like I dropped out of high school, not proud about it, but I dropped out of high school. I didn't have a lot of business experience. So a lot of building Tea by Daniel was figuring it out, just saying, hey, this is kind of like the music industry. Let me promote myself, like I would with music. They call that marketing. And, let me get my message out there. They call that advertising. So it was a lot of just figuring it out. But as I did do that, it was very genuine. And I think it resonated with people. I started to see, not quick success, but I started to see success fairly quickly as we were implementing these things. And then people started to ask, like, we want you to come to our company and tell your story. I'm like, story? Like, yeah, I guess. Okay. So that kind of opened up public speaking. It was 1 or 2 gigs here and there until it really started picking up. An agency started reaching out, and then international started reaching out. So then I decided to start a speaking business to make that, more formal. That was Daniel Speaks. Then companies started to say, who does your marketing? And I was like, well, me and my wife kind of, we design everything. We come up with all the ideas. A lot of businesses, small businesses, especially locally, would invite us to lunches to share some ideas and tips on marketing and advertising. So after a while, and that demand kind of picked up, we started a marketing agency. In that marketing agency, we were responsible for starting around 11 to 12 businesses from the ground up, and then handing them off to, the founders to run them. And then I've started my own separate marketing agency other than that. And that's kind of what I've got my hands into. So anything from food to clothing to marketing and speaking and the whole nine.
It's amazing. And when I say this next number, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for for over 27 years. So pretty close to as long as you've been alive. I don't admit that here, but pretty close. But it's people ask me sort of the same thing that you were talking about. And I talk a lot about innovation, and they're always like, well, what are the most important tools in innovation or being an entrepreneur? And I say it's your eyes and your ears.
I like that.
No, but people are always looking for magic. There's like some magic bullet. But if there was, we'd all be billionaires. We'd all be successful, and everything we ever tried would work. And boy, that's not the truth.
I like that. I like how you put that. Actually, and that's really what it is. When I'm doing keynotes and talking about opportunities and how to be an entrepreneur, I say, the definition of a CEO is to catch every opportunity. That's what a CEO does. That's who a CEO is. And the discipline and experience over time helps you to identify what is a good opportunity and what's not. But it's all about just being aware, as you say, with your eyes, your ears, and saying, this could be something, and trying it out. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, be aware. And the other low tech thing I say, it's funny, because again, there's so much technology and so much talk of innovation. I love my whiteboard. I just have all those. I just write things down. Everybody on the team, write things down. Don't lose those ideas. Beside your bed at night, have a pad, write it down. You just don't want to forget, do you?
So true. My books fill up really quickly. It's those shower thoughts where you're just in the shower and you're just like, wait a minute, like this would be amazing. And just it's handy to have that book to just jot it down quickly. So you're right.
So and tell us a little bit about your book or books.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first book I wrote was terrible, but it was really to just get through the motions of writing. And that one was called Weird as Waldo. And it was just about marketing. So marketing tips and tricks, effective kind of guerrilla marketing. So you don't have the biggest budget, you don't have a lot of money, but you want to move your business forward. Here are some perspectives that can help you in regards to marketing. So again, terribly put together. It was my first one, but still some helpful information for anybody. Where does Waldo? My second book was really where I put my heart and soul into it, which is my autobiography called How. Subtitled would be Tragedy to Triumph. And that is literally my story from a child to a couple years running Tea by Daniel, and all the business and life lessons in between. And I mean, it's taking music and what can you extract? It's taking childhood, it's taking love, like finding or marrying my childhood sweetheart, Renata. everything about just a wholesome picture of what it is to move from tragedy to triumph. Resilience would kind of be the overlying theme there. And then I published, I think 2 years ago, a book called Quotes, which are inspiring quotes from a person who's not rich and famous yet. And it was just, I like to believe that even like what you just said about, the eyes and the ears, that's what it means to be an entrepreneur. Like, I love practical, inspiring advice and tips and quotes from everybody, not just, you're in a thriller movie or blockbuster or something like that. So that's what that book was about. And then right now I am working on a book called Enjoy Your Coffee, which is, I mean, it should be tea, right? But Enjoy Your Coffee, which is all about how to live. Well, I'm still working on the subtitle, so I won't butcher it.
No problem.
Just another business life inspiration book.
Yeah, but what's amazing when you talk about it and you talk about the difference between the first one, and we all have our trial books and our first trial keynotes. But it's true. I remember my first trial keynote, if you will. And I mean, I was using PowerPoint that I couldn't even read, but we got better. Anyway, once you get over that bridge, you sort of know what you're doing. I mean, the passion that you talk to with your second and third book and with your business, I think, it's funny when I first started as an entrepreneur, I think my goal was just to have a business and build a business. And I did that, and I did that quite successfully and exited it, but I didn't really love it. And I wasn't really passionate about it. And it was hard to explain at the time because people were saying, oh, you always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and you are. And I said, yeah, but there's something missing. And passion, the way you talk to it, I mean, that's the core of success, isn't it?
Absolutely. And when you raise a good point, there is business where it's kind of transactional, it makes sense, it's a good framework, and you may exit that. But when it comes to business with passion, things that you love, these are the things that no matter what the balance sheet is saying, you still wake up motivated, you still wake up inspired to move it forward, to change it, to use it as a way of impacting or changing something or solving a problem. And I think once you find that business or that avenue, it doesn't have to be a business, that avenue, that's where life is. That's what makes life exciting. And yeah, you're right. It's progression, and it takes a lot of trial and error to find that. I thought it was music, and I did music for many years, but little did I know I can still get my message out there through books, through business, through entrepreneurship, through public speaking. So it's really just, finding your recipe as you go along through life. Yeah.
So as you go through and you change things, there's a couple of words that you use that the first one we talk a lot about in business, which is pivot. But the second one, and it's funny because we've used it in our strategy practice for a while, and it's swivel.
Yeah.
And to me, and I always hated the word pivot because, I mean, once in a while you have to, but pivot's jarring. Pivots, you just like blown everything. And it happens, especially in a fast changing world, but swivel, talk to me a bit about that.
It's really a mindset that I believe an entrepreneur or business has to have when it comes to swiveling. And it's understanding that it's really acknowledging how much we don't know about the future in the economy, the future, our own future. Like, I walked across the street to the convenience store, and then I was fighting for my life 10 minutes later, right? So we don't know what's ahead. So that mindset of swiveling is understanding how to build elements within your business or within yourself that can position you when things happen differently. And, I think, some call it pivot, some call it swivel, but it's really knowing how to adjust and say, okay, all right, didn't see that coming, but here that is, let's switch into this aspect, or let's pull this, or let's stop this. And it's really just all about adjustment and adaptation. Yeah. And, I've had to do that a numerous amount of times, continuing to do that. And as I do it with my business and with myself, I learn new things about myself, about my business, about the world that helps me prepare the next 5 swivels or moves. So it's really just a mindset to stay in, and then adjust as things change around you.
Yeah. And that word change and the mindset and everything, it's something that's so hard for a lot of people. And I think that, and I choose my words really carefully, because obviously the pandemic has been brutal. I mean, it's on every level for people and death and sickness. But when you do look at the one thing that I think we've learned is that we actually do have an ability to change. And it's amazing, because the one thing that I realized, I remember driving home last March as everything was shutting down and saying, why is this irking me? I mean, again, with my age, I've been through a couple of ups and downs in the economy and businesses and whatever. And I think that I knew that, we were all connected through technology, but I didn't know that we were all connected in person, because over 30 days, every single one on the planet was connected by this incredible experience.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what shook me. And I know that you've been talking about pandemic perspectives. So are there a few you can share and some takeaways from that?
Absolutely. When the pandemic became real, and I say that kind of facetiously, because there was a period of just, okay, this is weird and we don't know what this is. And then it became real, where, wow, people are dying. Businesses are closing down. We're wearing masks, we're staying home. Like, when it hit that stage, a lot of reflection. I did a lot of reflection. And I think that's important. First off, in and of itself, reflection in times of chaos, in times of trauma, in times of where things are uncertain and you don't know what's going on. Stop and reflect. Look back. Okay, this is what it was. And now it's not this. And then you'll get clearer steps of what's ahead. So I did that. And I looked back and I was like, okay, months ago, I was just operating my store. I had this cafe. Things were great, this and that, and all. I had staff and everything was good. It's not that now. Okay, where are we going next? And when I looked ahead, I saw a few swivels that I had to do in order to, get through the next month, 2 months, 3 months. But then I started to say, okay, I see what I don't have, but what do I have? The things I don't have is I don't have the store. I don't have the staff. I don't have the interaction with people that I'm used to. Yeah. Public events, conferences. I don't have that. Well, something I really do have right now is time to spend with family. So that got enhanced. And I have time to develop. So what are some things that were missing that I needed time for all these 10 years I was building this business? Well, remember I told you I dropped out of high school? Now's the time to go back to high school, which I went back, and yesterday finished my final exam and got my diploma. They're going to be sending it now. So now graduated through high school. I enrolled in 3 university courses on Coursera and got certificates to develop my skills. I started a podcast, started a new book. All this time, which I do have, I was able to transform and develop and get better and get more prepared. So I think when I talk to people about pandemic perspective, yes, acknowledge what's happening. I'm empathetic, sympathetic, but I'm also cognizant of the opportunity and how I can utilize it, whether to help others in a better way, to help myself, spend time more with family, or whatever it is. So I talk about hope, resilience, and reflection a lot during those presentations.
That's amazing. And I mean, it's, and there's one other thing that, we've never met before, but obviously you have as much or more than anybody I've ever met, and that's a power personality. So what, as a closing note, tell us about power personality, because wow, does it just come through? And it's awesome. It's awesome. Nice. It's uplifting. And I really hope the people who listen to this podcast or the radio just embrace how you have taken incredible challenges and become this incredibly positive person. So leave us with a little power personality thought.
Absolutely. First off, thank you so much for the compliments. It's always great to connect with people and just share what you've learned. It's really a passion of mine. That's probably what you're getting through the computer. Yep. So it really excites me. But the power of personality, I call it the pop. This was a realization where, and I won't throw any of my teachers when I was younger under the bus, but I will say there were skills that I had, and many other students that I know, that there were skills that we had that weren't seen as skills. And because it didn't line up with the math agenda, the geometry agenda, the science agenda, but there were skills like leadership, like communication, like humor, like emotional intelligence, understanding when someone's not feeling good in the class. And then, I'd be that class clown that would raise a joke to just get everybody laughing. Like, those were skills, but nobody told me that those were skills. There was probably 2 teachers ever in my life that told me those were skills. So there's that when it comes to school experience. Even when I was a child, in my book, How, I have a chapter called The Sandbox. When you stand up at a park, look in the sandbox, you see kids have these skills and traits, characteristics about them. You can tell who might be the leader, who might be a great assistant or motivator. You see all of that. And these are personality traits. Unfortunately, as life goes on, we get into the corporate world, we start our own business, we get, out there in the world, and we lose these things, or don't lose them, but hide them. And we start just doing the norm, putting on that facade and just, this is how I have to be, so this is what it is. And it comes down to this lesson that my dad taught me. When we're talking about the power of personality, my dad taught me this lesson about what it means to be childish, the difference between childish and childlike. He said to be childish is to be silly and immature. When you're starting out a business, you don't want to be silly and immature because you're going to run your business down to the ground really quickly. But childlike, those characteristics include things like, fearlessness, naivety, I'm just naive, forgiving, trusting. There's so many good characteristics and traits in a childlike personality. And my dad said, don't lose that in business. Don't be silly and immature, but do be childlike, because you've always been that. In other words, go back to the class clown traits and incorporate that into your business. The moment I did that, Ken, my business changed fast. I got back to humor. I got back to entertainment, all the things that were my pop, the power of my personality. And the moment I used those as tools in business, ways of advertising, ways of marketing my business, the business caught on. That's when the community came together. That's when Tea by Daniel was this little shop that got invited to Hollywood to serve the Backstreet Boys and celebrities. Why? We were just a little shop of personality, and not Daniel's personality only. The staff, individually, everybody was showing their pop. And I think that is powerful. So I encourage everybody to find their pop and use their pop, and not to hide that just to do business as usual.
But you know what? Thank you for that. And there's so many things that I could say to wrap, up this segment. But, the first thing I'll say is congrats on going back and do the high school completion. That's amazing. And no, it really is. That's an amazing thing. And for everybody out there, as you just listen to your dad. For all those kids out there, listen to your dad.
When in doubt.
Thank you so much, and congrats again on all your success. Take care.
Thank you so much, Ken. I had a blast. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.